So really, my first question is like, just how big a problem is it? And, like, is this a developing problem? I suspect yes, but have you got some stats to share on this? Like as a society?
Right. Mental health is one of those things that has finally got some spotlight. It's been hidden for a while. There's a big stigma around it. And when we think about the research and the studies, 1 in 5 people have mental health, and that is significant. I would say that's in adults, and really it starts young in our teens. It's 1 in 6 people have mental health illness. And then looking further in that, it's sad because, 50% of mental illness starts really young, actually, at 14 years old. And then
Mm.
and then by 24 years old, 75% of it has already been established in one's lifetime. And so we have to start early. We have to look at the statistics. And in our teens, it's the second leading cause of death, meaning suicide. So suicide is the second leading cause of death in our teens. And we have to really understand the complexity and the severity of how mental health evolves throughout one's lifetime. And we know that there are many causes. However, the conventional medicine has not addressed them. That's why the numbers keep going up. And with
Mm.
anxiety, it's very similar to actually those with diabetes, meaning 1 in 3 have some type of anxiety. So it's almost same as diabetes or even worse. So cannot ignore mental illness. And I know not many people like to talk about it, but it's so important because most of the time it's just not diagnosed and recognized.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point there. So the stats you shared are concerning, and but that is a good point about it being difficult to talk about. It's kind of difficult to admit, particularly in certain circles, in certain families, in certain social groups. I think it kind of depends. In certain countries, even. Perhaps Americans are more, well, talk about things more. I'm British, so we're a little bit more, as a society, closed down, don't talk about our emotions and stuff and how we're feeling and things as easily, perhaps, as Americans, or that's a big generalization. But yeah, it is a little bit taboo because it seems as though we're almost admitting there's something wrong with us that, yeah, like it's some kind of weakness.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite hard because most of us put the face, right? We smile every day. We kind of hold in our anxiety. We don't really like to show it. We go home, and then that's when our sadness comes on, our feelings of hopelessness, and then that insomnia kicks in, and it's just because we've been suppressing all the anxiety and depression, then we can't sleep, and we think it's because of our coffee. We think it's because of the stress, but it's because of undealt emotions and unresolved mood and relationships that may have impacted our mood, our energy. And with depression, anxiety, it affects everything. It affects our concentration, it affects our motivation, even our appetite, and will sometimes to live. And so, oftentimes, most people just suppress it, hide it, and not necessarily ask the why and the hows. And oftentimes it's not picked up at their doctor's office. 50% of it is underdiagnosed and undertreated. So people can go with a lifetime without even having been able to open up to their health provider as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that also it's a kind of a man-woman thing, and perhaps women talk about it more easily than men also. And sort of, we've got the whole macho thing going on with men, and they don't want to uh, reveal their true selves, kind of thing. But yeah, so let's talk about like this whole load of myths around this as well, isn't there? Like, people are understanding things which are kind of wrong. Could you talk to that?
Sure, yes. There's a lot of myths in mental health because even before, in the 1800s, people didn't know what to do with people who were mentally distressed. They locked them away, put them in asylum, and really didn't know what meds to give them. They just knew they should isolate them. And they didn't realize that it's not just linked to the mood and the energy, but also their nutrition and lifestyle. The first initial theories actually are incomplete. They thought it was about just monoamine oxidase and how that should be inhibited, or even the serotonin syndrome. We look at that, all the medications are linked just to serotonin and norepinephrine, but we know there's so many neurotransmitters in the brain. There's GABA, acetylcholine, there's all these things that help regulate the mood, the energy, that calm the nervous system down, even the brain neurotrophic factor, which is important to reduce the mood. So unfortunately, medications only cover one or two pathways. And that's why there's so much treatment resistant. We call it in the medical field depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, because the medications are only hitting one or two pathways, but we know that there's not only many, there's an inflammation in the brain. We call it neuroinflammation. So there's cytokines in the brain. Our immune system linked by microglia, astrocytes. These are the building blocks to help protect the brain. But when our gut isn't inflamed or our nervous system, our immune system inflamed, so of course our brain is literally on fire and you can't focus, you have low energy, and you have that brain fog.
Yeah. So it's multifactorial, and you mentioned a few of the causes there. Notably, you mentioned these unresolved emotions, relationships, nutrition. So can we get clear on like what the causes are, what the main causes are?
Yeah, exactly. So studies have shown it's not definitely multifactorial. If those who lack magnesium and zinc and plant-based, I would say polyphenols, those are the ones with the highest prevalence of depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizo. However, if you do the opposite, if you have more zinc, more magnesium, you can reduce those symptoms. The SMILES trial has showed just with nutritional counseling alone, people can have remission in depression, especially in even moderate and sometimes severe, up to 30%. So that's amazing. Even medications can't really do that. If you look at the number to treat, so number to treat means how many people it takes to give a medication to actually see an improvement. With the common SSRIs like Zoloft, escitalopram, fluoxetine, all those things, it takes about 6 to 8 people to actually see a difference. But
Mm.
with nutrition, it only takes one and maybe even two, but that's it. And that's how it's about t 3 times even more powerful when it comes to nutrition. Yes, sometimes you can use nutrition as first line therapy in the solo therapy, and sometimes you need the medications too, and that's a good adjunct to it. But I would say
Mm.
we cannot ignore nutrition because when we have the high saturated foods, the salty foods, the foods that are depleted in nutrients, that's what's really suppressing the brain function and also causing more inflammation in the brain.
Right. And then so before we get too much onto the solutions, one thing we need to just get out there is EMFs and where they play into it. And I just want to share with you because there is actually a bit of research which is really relevant to this conversation, and you probably know it. It's a 2016 paper published by Dr. Martin Paul, who's done some really great research, pulling a lot of strands together. And this paper is called, for people that are interested and want to Google it or chat GPT it, microwave frequencies, electromagnetic fields produce widespread neuropsychiatric effects, including depression. Okay, so this is the title. And what they're reporting in this paper are headaches and depression and various types of depressive symptoms. Fatigue is a common one, concentration and attention issues, memory changes, dizziness, irritability, loss of appetite, restlessness, anxiety, nausea, skin burning, and tingling. Because a lot of those symptoms, like the skin burning and
Right.
tingling, I'm bit too familiar with all of that, although it was a long time ago, but I know what all that is about. Um, and inflammation as well. You mentioned inflammation, neuroinflammation. There's a ton of research connecting mental health issues with inflammation. And also, what we have going on, which we've known since the 1960s, is how EMFs are attacking the blood-brain barrier, this protective barrier which is keeping out the toxins, which is letting the good stuff in, the nutrients, how it's
Absolutely.
messing all of that up, to speak really non-medically. And also, what you mentioned here as well is the gut, the microbiome, and we've got emerging research on this, that these EMFs are very, to put it very simply, they're making the bad bacteria badder, and they're destroying the good bacteria. So we've got a bit of a double whammy going on there. Dr. Melissa Mondala, thanks so much for sharing today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, listener and viewer. My name is Lloyd Burrell from electricsense.com. This interview and all my interviews are in the EMF Expert Solutions Club with transcripts. Until next time, thank you so much. Take care. Have a great day. Bye bye.